Hello and welcome to Read All About It, the podcast where people talk about their favourite and not so favourite books. Join me, Paul Cuddihy, as I take each guest on the literary journey of their life, from their most cherished childhood read and a book they'd recommend to anyone, to the book they couldn't be paid to read again, and much more in between. So listen, enjoy, subscribe and spread the word about the Read All About It podcast. Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Read All About It podcast, and I'm delighted to be joined this time by writer Chris McDonald. Originally hailing from the north coast of Northern Ireland and now residing in South Manchester, Chris has always been a reader. At primary school, the Hardy Boys inspired his love of adventure, which I think we're going to hear about in the course of this podcast. Before, his reading world was opened up by Chuck Palahniuk and the gritty world of crime. He's a fan of five-a-side football, has an eclectic taste in music ranging from Damien Rice to Slayer, and loves dogs. And he's also, just within the last 2 or 3 months, released his debut novel, A Wash of Black, published by Red Dog Press, and is already garnering some rave reviews. And among the things that people have said is, if you like Ian Rankin, Val McDermott and Cara Hunter, you will love this. So Chris, thanks for joining us on the Read All About It podcast.
Thanks very much for having me.
That's esteemed company to be in terms of crime writing, but you must be pleased. I've seen some of the things on Twitter with some really positive response to your novel, and as a writer, for the first time you get your book published, that must be so encouraging for you.
Yeah, the whole thing is just, I still can't get my head around it. I think, obviously that's very complimentary what's on the back, but people like S.J. Watson, who wrote Before I Go to Sleep, he put a picture on saying how much he enjoyed it, and it's just, I still feel very much an imposter.
It's always, I think for everyone who, if you've got aspirations to write a book, there's always different stages. You get the idea. The first time you finish that manuscript, your first draft, there's a sense of achievement, and then that's just one hill to climb, and then you eventually get it to a stage where you can submit it, and you've kind of got to that stage now where it's get published. And I'm guessing it must give you confidence as well in terms of the kind of type of book you're maybe wanting to establish a character in that crime genre, to get that positive response, because then it just encourages you for your next book.
Yeah, I think that's it, because the books that I like have that character running through them, and I think that's a massive part. So for people to take to Erika Piper, like someone who's just completely in my imagination, is a really nice thing. So book 2's just been finalised, and my publisher said that she's got stronger and things like that. So I'm hoping that people will continue the journey along with her. But yeah, that's been one of the best bits so far. People sort of feeling a camaraderie with her.
Do you remember that moment when you first had the idea for either the book or the character? Because obviously, as you say, it starts off as just an idea in your head and it's now in people's hands. But can you remember that? Was there a moment where you just thought, this is it?
I had sort of this idea, not this novel, but I had an idea for a novel in uni. So 12 years ago, stuff just kept going in the way. So I was like, what's the point in wasting all the hours that it will take to get it done? And then about 2 years ago, I went to see a panel where Olivia Kiernan was on it, and she's the author of the Frankie Sheehan series. And just hearing her talk, and it was her debut, and she totally inspired me. So that night, I'd had this idea, and in the opening chapter in my book, they find a body on an ice rink, and I had this, I think Fargo might have inspired it, all that white snow, but the sort of the white of the ice and the blood seeping out, and I thought that was my initial scene, and that's the one where I thought, where could I go from here? And I read a lot of crime, and I read a lot of police procedural series, so I needed to just form this detective, and I thought of this sort of strong female character. And I don't know where the name came from. I was thinking about this the other day, actually. I don't know why Erika, but it seemed to fit.
Because I think just from either seeing the feedback on Twitter especially, I'm guessing as a writer, particularly in that field of crime fiction where it's so populated, that if you can get yourself noticed, and as you say, some pretty big names have reacted positively, as a writer, that's a good sign.
Yeah, I think so, and it's people that, for the first one, and I'm still a nobody, but the fact that people like Mike Craven, who's a superstar in the crime community, was willing to read it and give me a little blurb for it. And obviously there are so many characters that people love, so to sort of find a mold and find a little in where people really identify with her was really nice.
No doubt we'll talk about more in terms of your writing in the course of this podcast, but basically what I like to do is take you back on the kind of literary journey of your life, and we'll go all the way back to childhood. And the first question I always ask is, what is your favourite book from childhood?
It's funny when I was thinking about this and I phoned my mum and said, what books did I used to like because my memory's so bad. And she said the Mr. Men books. And I remember being in hospital for asthma and completing the collection and they had the spine of I can't remember what it said now, but it was cool. And then I moved on to the Hardy Boys books and I really remember there being about 5 or 6 in my primary school library. And me and my friend used to just read them, swap them, read them over again until we knew them completely. And it was that sort of sense of adventure. And I think looking back, because I don't remember any of the titles or even their names or anything. But looking back, I think a lot of volumes have had to be changed because of like sort of slightly racist connotations. So I just wonder what my primary school were providing me with. But yeah, it was that sort of sense of, they were in a jungle in one book and then they were in the frozen tundra the next. And it's just there were no limits, but it was always so exciting. So that was the first real series that I remember just wanting to read everything I could get my hands on.
Because it's funny, I again when I got your choices and I was kind of having a look through, and I hadn't realised the Hardy Boys I think were written quite a while ago, and I think that's why they ended up having to be revised because, as you say, because of some of the sensitivities around the language that was used at the time. But they still apparently sell about 1 million copies a year, which is
Really?
extraordinary.
Oh, I might go back and have a little gander at them.
Well, either that, or if you go back and check if you've still got some of the books from years ago, they might be worth a couple of pound. Because I saw just before we started recording, there was a story of somebody who'd actually found a hardback first edition of the first Harry Potter book in a skip, and it's just sold for auction for £34,000. So,
oh man, I might have to troll through my attic after this.
But I think it's funny that you were saying. I think a lot of people when they were younger, because I remember reading some of the Hardy Boys when I was wee. But again, like you, I remember reading them, but I don't remember any of the stories or anything. I think it was just part of what you read when you were growing up.
Yeah, there was those, and the other series I remember loving was the Goosebumps books. And I'm a bit of a wimp, so when I mean, for like a 10-year-old or whatever I was, they were really like quite frightening, some of the stories. And I remember being in the car and I was so engrossed in this story, and my aunt grabbed my arm, and I think it's the first time I swore. And since then, anything scary or frightening I really associate with her. And I love her to bits, but yeah, I think I blame her for my wimpiness.
So she gave you a fright. I'm guessing she might have been quite traumatized with what you said.
Yeah, and I think she knows it because she reminds me of it quite a lot.
But I suppose that's what I've found, particularly asking people about their favourite book from childhood, and it's that either that book, that series at certain points, and it's almost like something subconsciously clicks into place, and at that point, from then on, you're a reader.
Yeah, I think once your imagination is captured by something or a specific genre or a character, yeah, that's you for life.
In terms of the reading, because it's quite interesting, what I found as well is when I take you on to the next choice, which is a kind of more teenage student formative years, and it's always quite interesting to see where that leap goes. So for you, it goes from the Hardy Boys to a book called Heavier Than Heaven by Charles R. Cross.
Yes, I got into music. I remember buying the Stereophonics album with like pocket money when I was 9. And I've always loved music, and it's always been a massive part of my life. And I think when I was around 12 or 13, I discovered Nirvana. And Heavier Than Heaven is a biography about Kurt Cobain. And it's the first time I think I read a book where I'm pretty sure it was the first time I read a book about a real person, so a non-fiction book, and a life that was so painful. Yet out of that, he created music that millions of people over the years have listened to and loved. And it was just interesting to hear about his like childhood all through his life, what drove him to be a guitarist, and then obviously his untimely death, which affected millions around the world. But there's the last sentence in it, and it's so beautiful. And I read it probably every 2 or 3 years, and it still gets a little tear in my eye. It's just brilliantly written, and it came along at the right time to accompany the music, and it sort of made the music more for me almost.
So what age would you have been in relation to Kurt Cobain when he died?
I would only have been 6, so there was no chance of me ever seeing him. But I've got the Reading, was it 91, the DVD of that live show where he comes on in the wheelchair and then launches into the first song. So I still listen to them all the time. So yeah, that book's one of the only ones that I brought over from Northern Ireland when I moved here. So it's kind of like a battered copy from 20 odd years ago now.
Because I always think as well in terms of non-fiction books, biographies, and in particularly if you're reading a biography of somebody who you admire, you really like their work or whatever, there's always that danger of it just never lives up to expectations. So it's good that if you read something where that kind of fulfills it.
Yeah, I think I agree because I recently read a book called Daisy Jones and the Six that was based, I think, roughly on Fleetwood Mac. And then I went to have a look at Mick Fleetwood's autobiography, and I think they said he didn't come off very nicely, and a lot of the stories were embellished. Whereas this sort of being, Kurt didn't write it, it was this other guy that had a completely impartial view. So it came across like he wasn't a very nice guy at times, and that sort of made it feel much more real. And you can hear that in the music.
It's interesting as well. It's not a book I read, although a friend of mine's actually, I think he's interviewed in it. He runs a music publicity PR company down in London, and they represented Nirvana in the UK. So I think he was sure he's in this book. But it's interesting when they were reading about the book that he didn't interview Dave Grohl. Is that right?
Yeah, I think so. I think he interviewed Chris and Dave didn't. But I read that Dave can't listen to the music or anything, so he probably didn't want to get too involved. So yeah, there's not that side of it. But they do talk to all the other ex-members and stuff, and so it gives that really balanced view of good and bad.
You mentioned obviously music plays a big part in your life, but the kind of bands you mentioned at the age you are, that's decent music taste for just a wee guy if you're liking Stereophonics at the age of 9.
I sort of I remember my mum having was it Smokey who is Alice in the car when I was on my way to primary school when I was 6 or so. So she was pretty cool with what I listened to, and then from Nirvana, I kind of got into Metallica about 15, and then I became a bit of a metalhead and played in bands and stuff. So yeah, music's always been a big part of it.
You mentioned that was maybe the first non-fiction book that you read. Is it something you read a lot of non-fiction or biographies, or do it have to be a specific subject, a specific person to kind of entice you?
Not really, no. I'm sort of at an age where I realised I don't know an awful lot about a lot of things. So recently I've been trying to educate myself a bit. So and especially when I write, I find it sometimes difficult to read fiction in case it sort of rubs into my writing. So I tend to read some non-fiction then. But I like finding out about people that I respect. I love football as well, and I'm a Liverpool fan, so I've read Gerrard's and things like that. So I'm up for kind of anything. I've got the history of Rome and stuff like that, just so that if I'm in a pub quiz, I've sort of got a broad range of knowledge.
Just the fact, we spoke already about the fact you've brought out your first crime book, and obviously I'm guessing that crime fiction as a genre interests you, but just what you said there, is there a worry sometimes if you're maybe just reading crime fiction and either you've got an idea and suddenly you read it somewhere else and you go, I've got to think of something else, or is it good to kind of immerse yourself in that kind of world because it helps your own writing?
I think it does, yeah. At school, I say if you want to be a good writer, you have to read a lot. So, I mean, my book was the first thing that I ever had a go at writing, so I sort of only had the knowledge that I had from crime novels. So I think it helps with dialogue and pace and stuff, because I know what not to do if I don't enjoy a book or if I haven't finished one. I'll sort of think, well, I don't want to spend 5 pages describing something if that's not what I've enjoyed. So I think, yeah, it's sort of my go-to genre. And I am okay with it. My worry is that if something happens in a scene, I'll think, I could maybe think along the same lines or something, and I don't want to do that. So that's why I tend to stick to non-fiction when I'm writing.
And I suppose if you have your character, that's unique to you and unique to your book. So what she does is dictated by you as a writer and her as a character. So that makes it individual to you.
Yeah, I think so. I think also there's a lot of a lot of female characters now. There's as detectives, and I think that's a really cool thing. And my worry is that, and I've sort of got this really good idea of what she's like anyway. So I'm pretty sure it wouldn't happen, but I always think just, I've got this idea and I don't want to sort of go off the path that I know that I'm on, just in case it takes me somewhere that I don't know where I'm going with it.
Yeah, and I think people listening as well will be impressed, given the fact that you said this is the first thing that you've written to completion and the kind of publication success of it. So I think there'll be a lot of people that will hopefully will then after this podcast go and check out A Wash of Black.
Yeah, I hope they do. Yeah, it would be cool if it did. Yeah, just I've always because I've got 2 young children as well, and I work full time, so I was sort of doing it at night, and it took what felt like forever, but I've been told it's not too long actually. So yeah, I think hopefully if people hear this, they like what they hear and they go out and check it out.
Yeah, and I always say to any other writers who've been on the podcast, the dream is that in a future episode somebody comes on and recommends your book.
Yeah, well, it's funny. My publisher and another author, Rob Parker, have started a podcast where we talk to different authors about stuff. And Olivia Kiernan, who I mentioned earlier, was on the show last week. So she was the reason that I wrote my book. So to have her sort of chatting, and it was probably the first time I was starstruck with who we had on.
You're listening to the Read All About It podcast with me, Paul Cuddihy, and the writer Chris McDonald. And Chris, we're on to the third book choice. That's a book that you would recommend to anyone. Now, when you sent me your list, and you mentioned the book that you originally chose as your recommendation, which was Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid, but you have since changed it, and the book you've now gone for is the Puppet Show by M.W. Craven.
Yeah, I'm horribly indecisive, and anything I read at the minute I tend to wax lyrical about. So I went back and forth on this one. The reason I originally said Daisy Jones and the Six was because it's sort of mixed music with fiction, and it's about this fictional band, and it's written by like interviews with each band, a musician, and it was really brilliantly written, and I loved it. But the Puppet Show, I think I sort of thought, is it just because I've just read it recently? So I thought of one that I've loved and I've recommended to many people. I'm sure loads of people have read it already because he's a megastar now, but the Poe and Tilly series that he's created, I think, is just changed how crime fiction's written at the minute. And The Curator, I think, is coming out in a few weeks' time, which is the third in the series. I think just his characters are brilliant, and it's just a really clever crime fiction book. So I thought, big up M.W. Craven.
Again, when I was just doing some research, I think it was the best crime novel of 2019. It got the Gold Dagger Award.
Yeah, and he was on our podcast on Sunday, and he told us some funny stories about a dreadful acceptance speech that he did, and just hearing his thought process and how he goes about writing and stuff. He said he wrote the first draft of the Puppet Show in 25 days, which is just mind-blowing when he's creating a whole new character and stuff. So yeah, I think that book is just, it was the start of a great series that's just getting better and better. So it's a good place to start.
Because one of the things, and again, we touched on it earlier on, what's always struck me about crime fiction is that, because there's only so many crimes that can happen, the key to a good crime novel and a good crime series is the characters. If you get a good character, then that's you. People are with you every way because, for example, your book, people that have enjoyed it, they're already wanting to know, they want to read more about your main character. They want to know what happens to her next, what she does, what she's involved in. And that is absolutely central to the success of any crime book.
Yeah, I think when I didn't want to fall into the trap of her having like a drinking problem and I mean, they have to have a sort of personal life because I think that's what makes them human and relatable. And I sort of was thinking, what could mine be? Because I didn't want to make it too stereotypical. So I mean, she got attacked on the job a year before what happens in my book, and it's her first case and day back. So it's her sort of going through what happens if I'm not the same person I was, or will I fear certain situations? So I thought that was a bit different to anything that I'd read in the recent past, so I thought that might be the way to go. I mean, I like reading about the people's personal life, like sort of everyone lounges about on the sofa, no matter how busy you are. So I thought that it's important to have those little short scenes where that happens so that people can relate.
As I say, I think the most successful crime series, whenever you talk to anyone about it, is they never really talk about the crimes. In fact, they never. It's that character that they love the character, and as you say, it has to be. It can't just always be about the crime because otherwise they're not fully rounded.
Yeah, and I think if you're just reading this happened, then this happened, then this happened, with her constantly going to crime scenes or interviewing people, it would quickly get very repetitive. Whereas if you've got a bit of a break where it's something that we all do, like cooking tea and just thinking about something unrelated, then it gives that little bit of reality, which I think people like.
And in terms of, because of the type of book it is and the type of character, I'm guessing, did you have to do quite a lot of research in terms of the fact she is a police officer, and I mean, you've got to get some of those details right?
Yeah, and I'm so squeamish, like I mentioned at the start, what I went by was, so having a Google like slit throat and then look at what came up was not pretty. I think if you read enough crime, you sort of get that people don't want. I mean, there has to be a level of reality, and I really made sure that it was, with like some of the forensic terminology and stuff like that. But my publisher said you're not writing a documentary about it. You know, if you miss certain things out, people aren't going to know. They don't want to wait 17 days for a fingerprint to come back because you've got to fill that time. So there's sort of, I tried to make it as realistic as I could without it going into like the minutiae of details, you know. But people have been very, I mean, one of the people that I got to read it was a forensic student, and she was impressed with the level of detail. And there was some of the terms she hadn't heard and stuff. So, you know, I did enough that I didn't sicken myself with it.
Yeah, and that's encouraging if somebody who that's their field can read it and it's plausible for them as well.
Yeah, and that felt, I guess, because obviously I was writing in the dark. I didn't know if it was good. I didn't know if I was getting stuff right completely. So to have sort of those people that read it before I sent it off was really, really useful.
Yeah, and you mentioned already, obviously, you know that character more than anyone else. Is there a part of you that thinks this would be a great TV series? And if so, who do you want to play your main character?
I've been asked this, and I've set lofty heights. I sort of in the book didn't really describe her on purpose because I wanted. I kind of like it, and even if people in books that I've read describe them in so much detail, I form a picture in my head that's completely different. So I purposely didn't. I said she had dark hair and she had an overbite. I think are the only two things that I remember. And I've sort of set my stall out and said in various things that I'd like Emily Blunt to play her. So we're talking maybe big screen instead of TV, unless the money can lure her in. Yeah, never going to happen. So I need a plan B, really. So any suggestions?
Well, once I've read the book, I'll get in touch with you with my suggestions.
Perfect. Here, you can be my casting director.
We always take a turn here when it goes from a book that you would recommend to anyone, and the next question is that a book that you couldn't be paid to read again.
Yeah, I tend to try and be kind to books that I haven't liked, and I sort of don't mention them, but I don't think I'm offending anyone here, unless we've got Jane Austen aficionados. But I think if you're being made to read something and you're not enjoying it, then it feels doubly as bad. And I was made to read Sense and Sensibility at uni, and I couldn't do it. And I had a lecture about it where I was going to have to discuss it. So I thought I can't go in completely blind. So I tried, and your question was, what couldn't you read again? I didn't read it in the first place, so it's kind of cheating here. I tried to watch the film the night before the lecture. Couldn't stay awake. So my one sort of real memory of uni is standing topless at my window at about midnight, trying to keep awake whilst I watched Sense and Sensibility. So it's not a great memory and it's not a great image, but it left a sour taste. So that's my book that I wouldn't go near again.
Listen, you do realise you've just imparted that image to everybody who's listening to this podcast. So.
No, it's not pretty, so I'm sorry about that.
Interesting that you chose a book that you studied at university, because I did a podcast recently with another guest in the same category. He chose, I think it was Wide Sargasso Sea by Damien Rice, for the exact same reason that he found he'd studied at university and he found it so difficult in that environment. It wasn't a book that he would have chosen or he wanted to read, and so kind of similar to you, he found it a really tough slog.
I remember our reading list being sent to me just before I started, and the three things I remember from it were Sense and Sensibility, Bridget Jones' Diary, and I had to watch Kindergarten Cop. So I thought, what have I let myself in for?
What was it you were studying?
I did primary teaching, but I did an English degree at the same time. So, I mean, Kindergarten Cop, I don't even remember why we had to watch it. It's a great film. It was the best of the three, really. But yeah, I can't remember the correlation. But yeah, it wasn't great.
Because I suppose that thing, he didn't reveal whether or not he was standing by his window topless at midnight watching a film adaptation, but what I thought it was interesting that it changes the kind of way you look at books when you're having to study them, because normally you would pick up a book and you want to read it and it's a choice and you enjoy it or you don't enjoy it depending on that, but it takes that choice away to an extent if you've been told you have to read it for a specific purpose.
Yeah, and I sort of feel like maybe 18's too young to be told, like, you have to read this classic, and I'm pretty sure if I read it under different circumstances, I might like it. But yeah, being told at 18 when you don't really, I mean, trying to find space to read books at 18 is hard enough, but being told you have to read what I considered dry at the time, and I might be wrong, and I'm sorry to anyone I'm offending here, but yeah, if I looked at it with more mature eyes, perhaps I might like it, but I don't plan on.
Listen, that's honest. The other thing as well is that this is a question where quite a lot of people, particularly writers, are reluctant to answer because for the same reason that you kind of said at the start that you don't want to criticise another writer's work because it's a subjective thing. But one of the guests in one of the early podcasts did say before he came on, must have been talking about it, and his wife said, "Just choose as long as you choose an author that's dead, you're okay."
Yeah, and then you're only offending the fans, and everyone's got an opinion, so you're grand.
Exactly. Well, we're on to the fifth and final question, and that is either the last book that you read or a book that you are currently reading.
I'm currently reading a book called Tall Oaks by Chris Whitaker. He has recently released a book called We Begin at the End. That's the first time I'd heard of him, and it was amazing. It completely blew my mind we talked about characters before. Those characters leapt off the page, and by the end of it, you felt like you really knew them. So I think that was his third book, and Tall Oaks won the debut dagger in 2008, I think. 2018. So I thought I'd go back, and it's just completely different. He's a real talent, and I think he's going to be massive. So it was quite interesting to go back and read his debut and see where he's gone.
And in terms of your kind of reading habits, obviously we touched on maybe some of the kind of subject matter, but is there always a pile of books that you're working your way through, or is it just one of those, see what the mood takes you or what somebody recommends to you as to what you read?
Yeah, sort of with doing our podcast, I've tried to read who's coming on next book if I haven't already, or two or three of them. But they're authors that I would have chosen to read anyway, so it's a bonus that I get to sort of read them and then have a chat with them. But my Kindle's full of stuff, and I've got like a shelf upstairs where I can't get near, and it keeps getting added to. So yeah, I've got enough books to do me quite a while. With the podcast, I try to read a few ahead, and then I've got some time to read something that I'd bought ages ago and hadn't quite got to. So there's no real plan to it. I kind of see what's there and what I fancy at the time, and then go with that.
And what was the motivation for starting the podcast then?
My publisher asked because I think it's a bit of lockdown therapy, to be fair. We're on like our 9th episode, and it started, I think, the week before lockdown or something. But I think his PR company that sort of helped with him asked him to do it as a way to sort of get publicity for different people. So yeah, we started that, and it's just, we do it on a Sunday night, and it's a bit of fun with like authors that are starting to really like ramp up how famous they are. I think we've got Anne Cleeves in August, and Callie Taylor's coming on in a few weeks. So we've got like pretty big names where I'm gonna, I think, feel pretty out of my depth.
Because the thing is, what I've found with this podcast is it's just enjoyable to sit and talk to people about books for an hour. And a few people have been on it. I started off and it was like friends, and it was almost like just replicating the conversations we would have if we're having a cup of coffee. But it's just like you and I, we've only connected via Twitter, but yeah, you can sit and chat about books, and that's what I love about these things.
Yeah, it's a very cool thing, and thank you so much for having me on. Like you say, we've only spoken via Twitter, and then like half an hour here, and it's comfortable, isn't it?
And I suppose, again, as a writer, but then as a fan of some of these authors and their books, it's, as you mentioned earlier on, you were kind of almost like starstruck when it's like, you interview the author who's kind of responsible for putting you out on your own path to hopefully success, and that's great for you as well.
Yeah, it's very cool. It's sort of, like I said at the start, I still feel like a massive imposter, and having these people say like, I enjoyed your book, and I'm looking forward to the next one, kind of thing. Like Mike Craven, like I mentioned earlier, and I'm going to sound like a complete fanboy, but he said on Sunday before he signed off, I'm looking forward to reading your next one. Like, he's someone I massively look up to, and he's huge. So to have him say that sort of gives you confidence almost.
Because I suppose once your book goes out into the world, and you're at the mercy of the public then, who will just judge the book solely with the book. But was there a pressure when you finished the book? Maybe you're letting your wife read it, or chosen readers to get that kind of initial feedback? Yeah,
I sort of connected with a few people on Twitter. One of whom is this a woman called Sarah, who I've never met, but she read the first one chapter by chapter, and if she hadn't done that, I wouldn't have kept going. But her feedback and her encouragement and enthusiasm really did keep me going. And then I thought it was safe from my wife, because she doesn't like crime books, and she read it and she really liked it, and that sort of, and I thought if I'm sort of appealing to a general reader, then that's a good thing. But yeah, I think handing it over to my wife was the most nervous I'd been. More nervous than handing it into like publishers and stuff, because I thought they're faceless people that, like if they don't like it, it's nothing. But if my wife reads this and think like, are you a psycho, then it's it's big.
Yeah, that could cause that's a whole wider problem for you in your
Yeah,
life.
and luckily we were sort of driving in the car to places, and I didn't think she'd read it. So I was sort of saying like, can you just write this in the notes on my phone while I'm driving? Just that a guy gets his head caved in the back of an alley. She's like, what are you like? Why?
I mean, you mentioned as well, you're a full-time primary school teacher, you've got a young family as well, so that obviously brings challenges in terms of your writing, but have you managed to get that balance of when to write? Is it just a case of whenever you get a chance, it's just snatching those moments of time?
Yeah, it's sort of. I was doing it under no pressure the first one because I thought if it takes me 10 years, if I sack it off because I can't be bothered, then it's nothing. And then when the first one got accepted and we started talking about the second one, it was at my book launch actually, and the guy that was doing it, Rob Parker, who's become a really good friend, and he's one of the other authors on the Blood Brothers podcast. He said, "When does your next one have to be in?" So I sort of looked over at my publisher and I said, like, "No, we haven't discussed that, but I think I've got a few months." He's like, "Do you?" So so that sort of became a bit, oh, maybe I do have to write a bit faster. But he's really cool with it. He's like laid back as they go. So yeah, we've sort of said September for the third manuscript. So even then, I don't know if he's joking or not. So I'm pretty laid back with it. And if I feel like writing that day, I'll do it. But if it's been a tiring day, I won't bother. I don't think you can rush it either. I think if you're forcing it out of you, and you'll end up resenting it. So I kind of just do it when I feel like it.
At what stage is the second book then?
Second book, it just takes me today actually to say that he's happy with it. So there should be proofs ready next week for a November release, 14th of November I think. So it's already up for like pre-order on Amazon and stuff. And then I'm 10,000 words into the third.
That's exciting, because that's a good time as well. That's just the perfect Christmas present for everybody, you know.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, and I mean, like, and I keep saying I can't believe how lucky I am, but someone from Rhode Island and someone from New Zealand the other day put pictures on Twitter of them, having received my book, and I just think, and then they're saying, "Oh, I've just pre-ordered the second one," and it always felt like it would only be friends that pick it up, sort of pity party, but to have people that I don't know be like, we've already ordered one that isn't out for another 6 months is just mind blowing.
And it kind of goes back to what I was saying right at the very start with that, the kind of positive response you've got from the first book. It just obviously that's an incentive in itself for you just to keep going, because you've obviously hit on something that people like.
Yeah, and I mean I signed a 2-book deal at the start, and I sort of had a map of where she was going, sort of Erika's journey, not so much the crime of what was going to happen, and the sort of big thing, but I knew where I wanted to take her. And then I've recently signed a 3 and 4 book deal. So yeah, I think it's all down to the reader, because if people didn't buy it, it wouldn't have happened. So yeah, it means a lot that people have spent time and money on it. So yeah, massively grateful.
That's going to keep you busy for a while then.
Yeah, and it's good because sort of during lockdown I get these chunks of time where I can just go and sit and knock out a chapter. Or I think it was John Connolly or Michael Connolly said, if you move the action on, even if it's by a paragraph a day, that's progress. And that's always kind of what I took, like, because my time is sort of limited at times, so I think if I can get a bit done, I've moved it on a bit, and that's always kind of the mantra that I've subscribed to.
Brilliant. Well, I always say to all my guests, by the end of it, I've always got recommendations of books to read, but I think the first one out of your recommendations is A Wash of Black. So
cheers, man.
But listen, that's us come to the end, sadly, of the podcast, Chris. If anybody wants to hear about Chris's or read about Chris's book choices, if you go onto my website, www.paulcuddihy.com, every guest will have their own individual page where I've just listed all the book choices. But, we mentioned already, Chris, you and I have just kind of connected via Twitter, which I think is one of the positive things of social media, and it's been great chatting to you about books.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. And I mean, if people want to come and find me on Twitter and chat, I'm all up for that. And yeah, I just thank you so much for having me. It's been a cool way to spend the night. Yeah,
and best of luck with A Wash of Black and the subsequent books in this soon-to-be very, very successful series, no doubt.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I think the second one's going to be called Whispers in the Dark. So yeah, I think November time. So yeah, be cool if you could check it out.
Brilliant. We'll look forward to that.
Cheers, man. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Read All About It podcast, and I'd love to hear what you thought about it. You can get in touch via Twitter at ReadAllAbout20, on Instagram at readallaboutit.podcast, or you can send an email to readallaboutit@paulcuddihy.com. If you've enjoyed the podcast, subscribe, leave a review and spread the word. If you haven't enjoyed it, say nothing to anybody. But I do hope you can join me, Paul Cuddihy, next time on the Read All About It podcast. And in the meantime, keep reading.